Alright, listen up, man. The pre-constructed decks from Commander Masters have generated quite a lot of controversy. People are gnashing their teeth, they're rending their flesh. The precons are $80, dude. But listen, brothers, what if we built a better, more synergistic, and more fun deck for less than the cost of those precons, my brothers? That's better Commander, dude. And this is your old pal, Nicky G, the Stinky Gentleman, the Lord of the Eastern Flank and the internet's most useless commentator, here to make that happen. But listen, you gotta give a merciless wet willy to the like button, dude, and you gotta give a generous nougat to the subscribe button. Now listen, I don't know what this guy is. I did a brief lore search. The only thing I found was that he was a monstrous entity, just like your high school prom date. If you think about it, we're all Maelstrom wanderers. We may not have a swirling vortex from which to draw power, but our minds and bodies are stones to be carved to draw out their true potential. You can be whatever you want, brother. Look at this guy, he's a classic. Maelstrom Wanderer is 5 green, blue, and a red for a legendary creature elemental. It's a 7/5. Creatures you control have haste. This guy has Cascade. Now listen, Cascade's a tricky ability. It seems simple at first, but gets more complicated the more layers you add. So let's clarify some of the rulings first off. Alright, Cascade triggers when the spell that has it is cast, not when it resolves. That is before the permanent would enter the battlefield. Here's the timing for Cascade. You cast the spell with Cascade. The Cascade ability triggers and goes on the stack on top of the original spell. The Cascade ability resolves. If you find an applicable card that you'd like to cast, you do so. The spell you cast as a result of the Cascade ability resolves, then the original spell resolves. A card cast with Cascade behaves like any other spell. It can be countered. If you cast another card with Cascade this way, the new spell's Cascade ability will trigger and you'll repeat the process for the new spell. Casting a card with the Cascade ability is optional. If you choose not to, the card is put at the bottom of your library in a random order along with the other cards exiled with Cascade. If you cast a spell with Cascade and there are no non-land cards in your library with a lesser mana value, you'll exile your entire library. Then, you'll randomly rearrange those cards and put them back as your library. Although you're essentially shuffling those cards, you're not technically shuffling it, so abilities that trigger whenever you shuffle your library won't trigger. And listen, these are just some of the rulings. There are others if you want to look it up. Maelstrom Wanderer also gives our creatures haste, which can be pretty wild, dude. Our strategy is to outvalue our opponents and slap out a ton of creatures and cast a bunch of spells from exile. I goldfished this deck quite a bit. It reliably plopped out the old entity on turn 5 or so. After that, you're just having creature diarrhea all over the place, dude. This is a very fun deck. You have to pay attention so you don't miss your triggers, but let's check it out, brother. So yeah, man, what's some secret tech out there? Released to the Wind. You ever see this card? 2 and a blue for an instant. Exile target non-land permanent. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may cast it without paying its mana cost. Hey man, if our commander's on the field and gets targeted, we can cast this in response and get that sweet Cascade triggers when we cast it again. Now for cascading, we gotta include some suspend cards, dude. You have cards like Inevitable Betrayal. So this says suspend for 3, 1 blue. Search target opponent's library for a creature card, put that card onto the battlefield under your control, then that player shuffles. Cascading into these works. You're casting without paying its mana cost, and you get the powerful effects for free. This is bribery, my brother, and getting someone's best creature is awesome. I love Wheel Effects, dude, and Wheel of Fate is an awesome card. It has suspend 4 for 1 and a red. Each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. Get that Wheel Effect, brother. Take a spin with Vanna White and Pat Sajak. Those old corpses are still doing that show, I guess. I think they're probably suing each other is what I heard. Look at this cutie. You got a Verna, the Chaos Bloom. A green, blue, and a red for a legendary creature. Elemental Shaman, it's a 4/2. As you cascade, you may put a land from among the exiled cards onto the battlefield tapped. Do this after the last card is exiled, but before deciding whether to cast a non-land card. Look at this cool lady just blasting off, dude. Look, she's got arms that are full of light. This is a relatively beefy power for 3 mana, dude. Bang it in if you cascade into it. It's a little secret tech here, dude. Now listen, you're going to want a butt ton of ramp out there, and I'm a sucker for mana dorks, but even more so with a commander that grants them haste, dude. But first, let's take a look at the Goblin and Archomancer. Red and a green for a creature, Goblin Shaman, it's a 2/2. Each spell you cast that's red or green costs 1 less to cast. This is a fantastic early game play, saving mana by the bushel and allowing you to get out ahead of the curve. Somberwalt Sage, he looks like the mom from Married with Children. 2 and a green for a creature, human druid, it's a 0/1. Has tap at 3 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. Look at this little goth legend out there in the woods with a big old owl. Now in this particular deck, there are about 20 sources of ramp and or cost reduction, and most have some additional utility as well. How about Goreclaw out here? He's got the terror of Calcisma, dude. 3 and a green for a legendary creature bear. It's a 4/3. Creature spells you cast with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast. Amazing. Whenever this guy attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1, gains tramp stamps until end of turn. This is a neat little card that got a pretty metal looking reprint in March of the Machine and again in Commander Masters. Topiary Stomper is another weird one. It's a 4/4 with Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. This guy can't attack or block unless you control 7 or more lands. This guy's a little beefy, and he gets a land when he comes down, and he triggers our Planeswalker, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Oh my god, it's been 1 minute already. Kiora Behemoth Beckoner. Love this card. 2 and a hybrid green-blue for a legendary Planeswalker. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Has -1, untap target permanent. Loyalty starting is 7. So untap your mana dorks or a dang land, brother. We have 19 creatures that trigger that first ability, including our commander. And you know what else we got, dude? We got Thrix the Sudden Storm. 3 blue for a legendary creature, elemental giant, just like old Nikki G here. It's a 4/5 with flash and flying. Spells you cast with mana value 5 or greater, cost 1 less to cast, and can't be countered. I like that. Another cost reducer. This guy has my hairline and my pectoral definition. And even if you know how to fly, dude, you gotta come down and do about 100 push-ups a day to get pecs like that, brother. Look at this little elf, dude. Rashmi Eternity's Crafter. 2 green and a blue for a legendary creature, elf druid. It's a 2/3. Whenever you cast your first spell each turn, reveal the top card of your library. You may cast it without paying its mana cost if it's a spell with lesser mana value. If you don't cast it, put it into your hand, brother. This also works with our suspend cards. Rashmi's in the kitchen, right? Listen, I can't eat eternities all day. I don't need you crafting eternities. I need you to get in there, craft me up some soup. Just kidding, dude. I do all the cooking and I'm gonna make some pizza. Oh man, how about the old Beast Whisperer, dude? It's pretty good in a deck with 44 creatures. If you Cascade, you're casting the creature you Cascade into for additional value. Now I have a couple creatures in this deck that enter the battlefield and draw cards, but I want to highlight Sphinx of Bethune. Why do I want to highlight it? Because you get a Factor Fiction, which listen, we all know that costs 4 mana, dude, and we're all willing to pay 4 mana for it. Then you get a 5/5 flyer with that extra 3 mana. What the heck, dude? I love this guy. Look at his shoulders, brother. Get out there and start working. Alright, let's move into the meaty theme of this deck, cheating things out with Cascade. Look at this Emoti, Celebrant of Bounty, dude. 3 green and a blue for a legendary creature, Naga Druid. It's a 3/1 with Cascade. Spells you cast with mana value 6 or greater have Cascade. I don't know what Emoti's deal is, but the showcase version from March of the Machine gives me vertigo, dude, so we're going to stick with this one. There are 22 cards that trigger this in my version of Maelstrom Wanderer. If you luck into one, you're getting double bang for double bucks. Flamekin Herald and Shardless Agent fill out our 3-drop slot with Cascade synergies. I'm not 100% sold on the old Flame Lady, but you know what? Let's give her a try. The 4-drop slot has this beefy Wild Magic Sorcerer, 3 and a red for a creature Orc Shaman. It's a 4/3, right out of Lord of the Rings, dude. This Sauron made this Orc. The first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. This also triggers our singular Planeswalker. Oh man, this is how people describe me when I walk into a party. Oh, here comes the Volcanic Torrent, dude. 4 and a red for a sorcery with Cascade. Volcanic Torrent deals X damage to each creature and each Planeswalker your opponents control, where X is the number of spells you've cast this turn. This stacks up way faster than I thought it would. In my playtesting, it's one of those things where like you're casting a bunch of spells per turn, you're cascading into this, and then you're cascading again. I mean, listen man, it just goes bonkers. Oh my god, it's my 7th grade girlfriend Sakishima's protege. 4 blue for a creature shapeshifter. It's a 3/1 with flash. Has Cascade. You may have this lady enter the battlefield as a copy of any permanent that entered the battlefield this turn. I'm not 100% on this thing because it's so expensive, but I think a budget deck built around Cascade is just the deck for it. Plus, if you're holding up mana, you can copy an impactful permanent your opponent's cast. And over here in the 6-drop slot, we got 2 payoffs, dude. You got now Feshni and Keeper of Secrets. These are our Cascade payoffs and are both big beefy beaters. Also, both are strangely attractive, alright? Listen, I'm swiping right on both of them and hoping they aren't roommates. So what the heck are some good things to Cascade into? Well, the new Atali is pretty good, dude, and we can flip him late game with all the mana and the extra lands this deck pumps out. Hullbreaker Horror is also in there because we're casting things left and right, and this big animal is a house, especially if we're cheating it out. Anytime I get this out on the battlefield, people are just like, alright, I scoop, there's nothing I can do with this thing. Kodama of the East Tree, this guy comes down, he's in the Beast Tree, dude. 4 green for a legendary creature spirit, 6/6 with reach. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, If it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser mana value from your hand onto the battlefield also as partner. This is an interesting card, has a bunch of combos with bounce lands, etc. This guy just plops stuff out of your hand onto the battlefield. When I first saw this, I was just blown away when I first read it. Every game I've gotten it out in various decks, it either does incredible work or it dies immediately. That's how you know it's good. Now this is a new addition to my lexicon, dude, but we got Sirach and Goreclaw out there. These are a married couple. They've been married for 25 years, and quite frankly, he's kind of sick of her BS, dude. 4 green for a legendary creature. Human bear, it's a 6/5 with trample. Other creatures you control have trample. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It gains haste until end of turn. Listen, man, you're playing big creatures, and these guys do so much for 6 mana. This is a bonkers card that I immediately hopped on and bought a bunch of copies, dude. And we also have a couple cards that are cheap, neat, and fun to cheat out some of these impactful spells. You have the old Genesis Ultimatum. I'm not even going to read that mana cost because it's giving me a headache. It's a sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the battlefield and the rest into your hand. Exile this thing. So we're fully stocked with permanents in this deck, and this costs less than our commander, so this is going to do a lot of work from Cascade into it. Take a look at this bad boy, Majestic Genesis. 6 green for a sorcery. Reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone, so that's going to be 8. You may put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. This is Genesis with Phil Collins' brother. This is going to give us incredible advantage. It's a sweet card, looks like some lady of the forest is just creating life, brother. That's the miracle of life, dude. You're witnessing it right now. Now listen, if you want to be a silly goose, you could up the budget with some Kiki-Jiki combos, some Apex Devastators out there. You can get Terror of the Peaks in there if you want a Consecrated Sphinx, all kinds of stuff like that. Scroll Rack could be really good in here as well. You can control what's on top of your library, but that's for rich people, dude, not us peasants. There's also some Temur Sabertooth combos, but that's not my focus here. So listen, man, take your little finger and click on the Moxfield link, alright? You're going to check out this deck, you're going to goldfish it about 15 times while you're sitting on the toilet. Okay, then you're going to get up, you're going to make some french fries, alright? You're going to bake them, you're not going to fry them, dude. You don't need that extra oil. I don't know what the old Wanderer is going to cost, so I'm leaving him out of the budget. But this deck is cheap, fun, and absolutely buries opponents in value in the form of sweet Temur creature beats. So check it out and have fun out there, my sweetlings. This is way better than any of the precon decks. Snicky G from Better Commander signing off.